Hello, everyone. Sufit here. I'm here today with Charles B. Ticker, estate mediator. Charles, I want to ask you today about kind of an uncomfortable topic. You deal with sibling estate disputes as a mediator. Do you ever come across a situation where one sibling is alleging that another sibling has overly influenced, unduly influenced, I don't know what terminology you would use, but influenced the parent to make a will that's favorable to one sibling and not favorable to the other? Does that happen?
It happens almost all the time in almost every will challenge case. Uh, an allegation of undue influence is going to be made as a ground to set aside the will.
And will a court do that?
Well, certainly that is one of the grounds that can be used to successfully challenge a will, but it's also a very difficult thing to prove because the person doing the alleged undue influence is doing it behind closed doors, and unless it's on videotape or been witnessed by others, it's difficult to prove. Although it reminds me of a case that I had once, was when I was litigating a will challenge case where someone actually took a video of mom signing the will, and they thought it was a good thing. They thought it was going to show that mom knew what she was doing, but on the video it shows one of the siblings asking all the questions, leading questions, and putting words in mom's mouth, and it actually made the case for undue influence. But people have to understand undue influence is almost like coercion. Okay, so it's not an easy thing to prove or to succeed with.
Well, that actually brings me to my next question, and you kind of a little bit partially answered it, but I'd like to go a little deeper on that. Use the phrase undue influence. Well, what does undue mean? Like, is there an amount of influence that is acceptable? And is there amount of influence that's unacceptable? And where does one draw the line? And who decides that? Jump right into that whole big pool of questions.
Well, undue influence is not influence. It's like I said before, it's almost akin to coercion. In other words, you're getting your parent to make a will that really doesn't reflect their true wishes. And if the parent is vulnerable, if they're dependent on that sibling for helping them with their shopping or looking after them, or even looking after them, helping them maybe financially, they're going to be susceptible and vulnerable to that influence. So I read about it in my book, so if Bobby says to dad, hey, dad, I'd like you to, leave me enough money so I can buy a nice, red convertible. Is that undue influence? Probably not, just trying to give him an idea. But if you say, hey, dad, if you don't give me the money to buy that convertible, I'm going to put you into a nursing home.
Oh my God.
Is that possibly crossing the line into undue influence? These things are very hard to predict. And if you read the reported cases, usually the examples of undue influence are pretty severe. But having said that, and I always say this at my mediations, you don't know what a judge is going to do and how that influence, how that evidence is going to be interpreted, or how it's going to go in. So one judge might say, yeah, undue influence will set aside. Another judge might say, well, maybe, but not enough. Sorry, you lose.
So you're talking about more something like a threat, or like, would it be undue influence to bring your parent flowers and candy and cake every day and take them to the theater and blah 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 blah, and suck up to the whatever? Is that undue influence, or is that just sucking up to get a good a good request in the will?
Well, and that's a good point. I see this in the mediations where a sibling's challenging the will because their other sibling was treated more generously in the will, and the other child says, well, I had a better relationship with my parents. I brought them flowers, I cooked them dinner, I took them to the theater, I took them on vacations. I never knew what they were doing with their will. I was just nicer to them. My other sibling, only saw them once a year and never even sent them a Christmas card. So how do you deal with that? Is that undue influence? Or saying, look, there's nothing that says a parent has to treat a child equally in the will. It's going to create a problem. Yeah. It's going to bring me business as a mediator. Yeah. But does that mean it's undue influence? Probably not.
All right then, and just before we close on this question, who's better at dealing with the question of undue influence? Would you rather have your case dealt with in court by a judge, or would it be better in a mediation with a mediator? What would you recommend to somebody who is making the allegation that his or her brother or sister unduly influenced the parent in making the will?
Well, I've seen this in my mediations and also in my practice. If all they got going for them is an allegation of undue influence and nothing more, like they don't have really strong medical evidence to show that there's a cognition problem, a capacity issue with the parent, if they don't have, something like that, and all they have is, well, I have a suspicion, then they're running the risk that a judge may not agree. And so certainly at the mediation, excuse me, I'll be discussing it with both sides and saying, look, I understand you feel very strongly about this, but are you prepared to take the risk of this going south? Are you prepared to roll the dice? What does it look like if you don't settle this case? All I can do is open the parties' eyes and ears to the possibility of things may not turn out the way they hope at trial.
So it sounds like you're coming down on the side of mediation for this one.
I think that's what I'm saying. You read my mind correctly, that mediation, even though no one's going to be leaving the mediation dancing for joy, and that to me is a fair settlement, everyone's somewhat unhappy, it leaves the control with the parties to take control of their own lives and not leave it to a total stranger who's going to come up with a decision that is going to be really disappointing for somebody.
Right, because the mediator's not deciding, it's not an arbitrator. The mediator's just facilitating a settlement between the parties. Is that right?
That's right. I'm not there to make any decisions. I'm just there to help the parties understand, how they should go about making a decision, what to do with the case and what to do with their lives.
Okay, there you have it. Charles B. Ticker, take control of your own life. Charles, thank you very much.
My pleasure.